I had barely stepped off the plane when my phone started buzzing. It was my boss. Again. My wife and I had saved for over a year for this honeymoon, beachfront resort, 5 nights, no distractions. But instead of letting me enjoy the first real break I'd had in years, he asked me to cancel everything and jump on a video call for a client pitch. His exact words were, "We can't risk losing this account. You're the only one who knows it inside out." At first, I was furious. But then, I smiled. If they were going to interrupt my honeymoon, I'd show them exactly what I was capable of, even from a beach chair with waves crashing behind me. They had no idea what was coming next. The ocean breeze was warm, the sun was just beginning to set over the horizon, and the rhythmic crash of the waves provided the perfect soundtrack to my first evening in paradise. My wife, Alina, sat beside me sipping coconut water, both of us barefoot in the sand. We had been married just 5 days earlier, and this moment, was supposed to be the beginning of our new chapter. After saving for over a year, postponing vacations, and pulling late nights to make ends meet, we had finally carved out a sliver of time for ourselves. And then, my phone buzzed. At first, I ignored it. Then it buzzed again. And again. A string of texts from my boss, Warren, started flooding in. Urgent. Call me ASAP. We're in trouble with the Thompson account. I closed my eyes and exhaled sharply. I already knew what was coming. Warren never respected boundaries. He was the kind of manager who wore workaholic like a badge of honor and expected everyone else to do the same. He knew I was on my honeymoon. He knew I had earned this time. But he didn't care. I finally picked up the phone and walked a few steps away from Alina. "What's going on?" I asked, keeping my voice low. Warren didn't even bother with pleasantries. "We've got a problem. The Thompson Group moved their meeting up to tomorrow. If we don't pitch them by noon, they're going to our competitors." I clenched my jaw. "Warren, I'm on my honeymoon. You know that. Can't someone else present?" His voice was sharp. "Nobody knows the data flow integration like you do. You wrote the architecture. They're expecting answers only you can give. You want us to lose an $8 million client?" I paused, glancing back at Alina. She was watching me, trying to read my expression. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just any trip. It was supposed to be the one time we unplugged, the one time we chose each other over everything else. I turned back toward the ocean, voice tight. "What are you asking me to do?" Warren didn't miss a beat. "Cancel your plans. Get somewhere with a stable connection. Be ready by 11 a.m. tomorrow. No excuses." I ended the call without another word. My heart pounded, not from stress, but from something deeper. Disappointment. Anger. Resentment. This wasn't the first time Warren had pulled something like this. Over the past year, I had covered for teammates, picked up extra hours, led system migrations on weekends, and saved more than one client relationship. I had never asked for recognition. But this was different. This was my marriage, my time. And they were trying to steal it. That night, I sat with Alina on the balcony of our beach villa. She didn't say don't do it. She didn't guilt-trip me or demand anything. Instead, she said something that surprised me. "If you're going to do it your way. Don't let them ruin this for us." That sentence stuck with me. So, I did something I'd never done before. I got up early the next morning, watched the sunrise while drinking fresh coffee, and set up a makeshift workstation on the beach. My laptop was balanced on a table between 2 palm trees, and I wore a white button-down over my swim trunks. I connected to the hotel Wi-Fi, ran a few backup hotspots just in case, and downloaded all the client files I needed onto my hard drive. Alina even helped run a test call with me to make sure my camera and mic were clear. I wasn't going to just show up, I was going to own it. At 11 a.m. sharp, the meeting began. The Thompson Group joined from their Manhattan office, their conference room sleek and professional. Warren and the rest of our executive team appeared from headquarters, dressed in full suits, with fake smiles plastered on their faces. I could see it in their eyes, they were nervous. Warren introduced me with barely a sentence. Our systems lead is here to walk you through the architecture. I clicked share screen and started walking them through the technical model. I explained the entire end-to-end solution, from data ingestion to API deployment, laying out the value in precise, business-friendly language. The ocean shimmered behind me. I could feel the breeze on my face. The waves were audible in the background, but not disruptive. Just natural. A few minutes in, one of the Thompson executives leaned forward. "Wait, where are you right now?" I smiled. "Barbados. I'm on my honeymoon." There was a pause, followed by a laugh. "You're pitching us a multi-million-dollar integration, from a beach?" I nodded. "Yes. Because I believe in this solution. And I know it inside and out." That broke the tension. The rest of the meeting was electric. I answered every question, addressed concerns before they were raised, and anticipated what they'd need 6 months down the line. They were nodding, taking notes. By the end of the call, the lead executive said, "This is one of the clearest pitches we've had. It's obvious you've thought this through." After they left the call, Warren unmuted. His tone was clipped. That was impressive. I didn't think it would go that smoothly. But I knew what he really meant. I didn't think you'd make us look good. I just smiled and said, "Let me know if you need anything else. I'm going to take my wife snorkeling." I closed the laptop, leaned back in the chair, and felt something I hadn't felt in months: peace. That meeting didn't just go well. It went so well, I knew something was going to shift. But I had no idea just how much it would shake up the company in the days to come. The call with Thompson Group had ended, but the waves it sent through the office were only just beginning. I shut my laptop, stretched my legs out into the warm sand, and looked at Alina, who had watched the entire meeting from her lounge chair with an amused smile. "You crushed that," she said, raising a toast with her drink. I smiled, relieved, but also exhausted. I thought that would be the end of it. Handle the meeting, save the deal, and go back to enjoying our honeymoon. But the very next morning, Warren called again. This time, I didn't answer right away. I waited. I let him stew in voicemail. When I finally called back hours later, his voice was tense, even irritated. "What you did yesterday got attention," he said. The CFO was on the call. So was the VP of Enterprise Sales. They were impressed. His voice was flat, like he couldn't stomach giving me credit. "They want to know if you'd be open to joining the corporate strategy team when you return." That made me sit up. Strategy? That was a step above engineering. It was a position reserved for executives in training, for people on the fast track. I had always assumed someone like Warren would block me from that path, or at least slow me down. But now the gatekeepers were the ones reaching out. "I'll think about it," I said casually, hiding the storm of emotion in my chest. I didn't want to make any decisions while still on vacation, but it was validating to know that the right people had seen my work for what it was. I didn't tell Warren that this shift had actually started long before the meeting. I had been working on automation scripts that streamlined our data integration process, something that had saved the company over $600,000 in client onboarding delays. I had also submitted a proposal 3 months prior suggesting a more modular architecture for our product stack, but Warren had shelved it, claiming it was too ambitious. Now those same ideas were being floated around in leadership meetings as innovative strategies, ones tied directly to me. When we returned from the honeymoon, I walked back into the office with a different energy. Before, I had tried to fit in, to work quietly, to avoid stepping on any toes. But now? I walked tall. People greeted me differently. Some with cautious respect. others with envy. The Thompson deal had closed 2 days after my beach pitch, and they committed to a 3-year contract worth $8.2 million. The word around the office was that the deal had been saved, single-handedly, by a guy in swim trunks and a Wi-Fi hotspot. But Warren wasn't happy. He had been sidelined in his own moment of recognition, and that bruised his ego. In meetings, he began nitpicking my work again. "Next time, wear a proper shirt," he had said when a recap video from the Thompson meeting was shown in a team training. "Try not to turn your honeymoon into a marketing stunt." I bit my tongue, but I wasn't the only one who noticed. Several junior employees started asking me for mentorship. "You actually seem like you care about solutions," one intern told me. I didn't know whether to be flattered or sad at what that implied about the rest of leadership. The real turning point came during a monthly all-hands meeting. The CFO took the stage and began recognizing team contributions. "There are many reasons our Q2 numbers look as strong as they do," she said, "but I'd like to highlight the Thompson recovery as a textbook case of commitment and technical clarity." She paused. "Special thanks to Ion for leading that meeting from halfway around the world. That kind of dedication is what defines us." There was scattered applause, some genuine, some reluctant. I saw Warren's face darken. His jaw clenched. He clapped slowly, eyes fixed forward. That evening, I got an email from the strategy team, an official offer for a cross-functional rotation program with a dotted line report directly to the COO. The same COO who had been ignoring my emails for the past year. Suddenly, I was invited to meetings I had never known existed, ones where product roadmaps and global expansion plans were being laid out. Still, I didn't forget where I stood. I wasn't untouchable. Warren may have been bruised, but he still had influence. He started assigning me grunt work disguised as urgent executive asks. He removed my name from certain deliverables before submitting them upward. On one occasion, he presented an idea I had floated months ago in a Slack thread, claiming it had come from a late-night brainstorming session of his own. The irony wasn't lost on me. He was trying to benefit from the same hustle he had dismissed as a distraction when I was doing it independently. But I had learned from the honeymoon call, I didn't need to argue. I needed to show. So I began documenting everything. Every proposal I submitted. Every solution I designed. Every line of code with my initials in the commit log. I sent status updates directly to department heads instead of routing them through Warren. Quietly, politely, but persistently, I made sure the right people knew who was actually doing the work. And then came the whisper: the company was being shortlisted for a multi-million-dollar tech partnership with a Fortune 100 client. The COO was assembling a team to prepare a proof of concept. And she requested me by name. That's when everything shifted again. Warren couldn't block me. He couldn't ignore me. He had to sit there as I was pulled into a high-profile project that bypassed his authority completely. The resentment in his eyes was unmistakable, but so was the fear. I wasn't just a quiet engineer anymore. I was a visible asset. And worse for him, I had become a symbol. Still, I stayed humble. I didn't throw it in his face. I didn't gloat or post victory speeches on LinkedIn. I kept doing the work. Because somewhere between that beach meeting and the moment I shook hands with our new partners, I realized something important. I didn't need validation from bosses who saw me as expendable. I just needed to keep being undeniable. And I wasn't done yet. What Warren and the others didn't know was that I was already laying the groundwork for something bigger, something of my own. But that story would come later. Returning to the office after my honeymoon should have felt like a clean reset, a welcome home, a congratulations, a job well done for pulling off a multi-million-dollar deal in the middle of a personal milestone. But instead, it felt like stepping into a storm I didn't see coming. On the surface, everyone offered smiles. Some congratulated me for the Thompson deal. Others teased me for becoming a beach closer, like it was a novelty. But behind the pleasantries, there was a subtle shift in energy. A tension I couldn't ignore. especially from Warren. He hadn't spoken to me in person since the CFO mentioned my name during the all-hands meeting. When we crossed paths in the hallway, he offered a curt nod. No eye contact. No warmth. But he didn't have to say anything, his body language screamed what his pride wouldn't let him admit: I had upstaged him. And worse, I had done it without his help. In Warren's world, success only mattered if it traced back to him. 2 days after I was invited to join the cross-functional rotation team under the COO, I received a new assignment. It was positioned as high priority, a client migration request supposedly needing immediate attention. But the scope was a mess, the timeline was unrealistic, and none of the tools I needed had even been approved. It was sabotage disguised as responsibility. I knew what Warren was doing: he wanted me to miss deadlines. To drop the ball in front of the very executives who were starting to see me as leadership material. I didn't take the bait. Instead, I leaned harder into execution. I burned midnight oil not because I was forced to, but because I wanted the success to be undeniable. I pulled favors from engineers in DevOps. I organized a cross-department sync without Warren's blessing. And within a week, not only had I delivered the client migration ahead of schedule, but I also solved a back-end latency issue that had plagued our system for months. My write-up was shared internally by the VP of Engineering. I ended the presentation with a roadmap for improving cross-functional collaboration, highlighting cost savings and faster delivery cycles. When I finally closed my laptop, the room was quiet. The kind of silence that isn't awkward, but electric. Then the CEO clapped. It started slow. Then the COO joined. Then 2 board members. Within seconds, the room was filled with applause. Thank you, Ayan, the CEO said. That was one of the most grounded, forward-looking presentations we've had in here in a long time. It's clear we've underestimated the talent sitting right under our noses. He looked around the room. Let's fix that. And just like that, I knew something had shifted. Not just for me, but for the way people like me were seen in the organization. I had gone from someone who took orders to someone who now helped give them. After the meeting, the COO pulled me aside. We're creating a new hybrid role, she said. Technical strategy architect. You'll help bridge engineering with client-facing teams. We want you in that seat, reporting directly to me. My heart raced. It was everything I had been pushing for, and more. I'd be honored, I said. Warren passed by us in the hallway, his eyes avoiding mine. For the first time, he looked small. Not because I beat him, but because I no longer needed his permission to succeed. I walked back to my desk slowly, trying to process it all. My inbox was flooded with messages, some congratulatory, others in awe. A few quiet ones simply said, "About time." That night, as I sat at home with Alina, sipping tea on the balcony, I told her the whole story. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and said, "Told you. The beach made you magic." Maybe she was right. Or maybe the beach didn't give me magic. Maybe it reminded me that sometimes, you don't wait for the room to invite you. You bring your own chair. And then you show them why they needed you all along. The glow from that boardroom victory lingered for weeks. My calendar began to fill with strategy meetings I'd never been invited to before. Directors looped me into project planning calls not because they had to, but because they wanted my input. And the strangest part? My badge started opening doors on the executive floor, doors that had always felt metaphorically, and literally, close to me. But with the recognition came ripples, quiet, skeptical whispers from those who had once comfortably overlooked me. There were those who congratulated me sincerely, of course. Jenna from finance brought homemade cookies to celebrate. Rafi from product dev sent a meme-filled email titled "Beach Boss Mode, activated." But for every warm smile, there were 2 cold glances. Most came from Warren's circle, people who had benefited from the status quo and weren't thrilled about the new winds blowing through the upper levels. I didn't blame them. Change is unsettling, especially when it's wrapped in someone else's success. Still, I focused on the work. The new role, technical strategy architect, was exhilarating. It was cross-functional and dynamic. I split my time between engineering teams and client strategy sessions, serving as a translator between the technical and the tactical. It was what I had always done informally, only now I had the title and authority to back it up. Then came the Global Ops project. It was a massive initiative, streamlining our international operations across 4 continents. The scope was wide and messy. Data migration, compliance, system re-engineering, client transition. A project that needed a vision, fast execution, and someone who understood the machinery beneath the surface. The CTO tapped me to co-lead. I accepted. I was excited. And then, a week into planning, I realized something was off. At first, it was subtle, files missing from shared drives, me being left off invites I should have been on. I chalked it up to chaos. Global Ops was too big, too scattered. But then I caught Warren in a strategy session, guiding the narrative away from my contributions. He used terms I had coined, claimed credit for architectural diagrams I had shared in one-on-ones. It was déjà vu. I wanted to believe he was just confused, maybe trying to impress a few folks. But after it happened 3 times, each in progressively higher stakes meetings, I knew it wasn't an accident. Warren was playing politics. Again. Only this time, I wasn't the lone engineer. I wasn't on vacation, half a world away, scrambling to keep the lights on. I had a title now. A track record. And receipts. Rather than call him out publicly, I opted for strategy. I documented everything. Every change I initiated. Every deliverable I handled. I timestamped code merges, stored email approvals, and tracked Slack threads with a quiet sense of purpose. I made sure my work spoke louder than any rumor he might float. And then I started planting seeds. In one client call, I gently referenced the integration strategy one shared last Friday, then linked to a doc only I had access to until that moment. In a team huddle, I casually mentioned the recovery scripts I used on Thompson, the same ones Warren had described earlier as something our senior staff pulled together. People started noticing. Then came the operations review. Every quarter, leadership gathered to walk through wins, losses, and lessons. It was a high-visibility moment, more boardroom than back office. I was asked to present the tech roadmap for Global Ops. Warren was listed as co-presenter. I said nothing. I prepared my slides. And waited. When the day came, the room was filled, directors, VPs, even a few external stakeholders. Warren took the mic first. He started strong, talking big picture. Then, he veered into specifics, system integrations, change management, back-end load balancing. And that's where he slipped. He referenced a solution for multi-region deployment. One that, to those in the room, sounded impressive. But it was wrong. Not technically flawed, but outdated, based on specs from 2 versions ago. It was my cue. I stood, nodded politely, and said, "Great overview, Warren. If I may, I'd like to offer an updated approach. We discovered during testing that the deployment framework needed to accommodate real-time compliance triggers in EU servers. Here's how we solved it." I clicked my slide. Silence. Then interest. As I walked through the code logic, the risk management model, and the deployment graph, heads nodded. The CTO scribbled something. The chief legal officer raised an eyebrow. Warren didn't speak for the rest of the meeting. Later that afternoon, I got a message from the CEO. "Excellent work today. You've got a sharp sense for both the details and the room. Let's talk next week about a broader strategic role." I've got something in mind. I exhaled. Not because I had one, but because I hadn't had to play dirty to rise. I didn't throw Warren under the bus. I didn't shout in meetings or escalate things unnecessarily. I just did the work. Loudly, quietly, and visibly. After all, I hadn't chosen this path for revenge. I chose it because someone needed to prove that leadership didn't have to look like manipulation. Sometimes, leadership just looks like logging in from a beach, fixing the impossible, and remembering every name that once forgot yours. A week after the operations review, I was summoned to the CEO's office. Not an email, not a calendar invite. His executive assistant called me directly and said he'd like to see you today. In person. Just bring yourself. That alone told me something had changed. When I walked into the top floor office, the view of the city stretching out behind him, he didn't waste time with small talk. You've proven something most people never do, he said, folding his hands. You can deliver under pressure, navigate internal politics without getting dirty, and you understand what this company actually does, not just what we pretend it does on paper. I blinked, unsure whether it was a compliment or a trap. I need someone who doesn't need to shout to be heard. Someone who already has people listening because they know what they're doing. I want you on the Strategic Innovation Council. I sat up straighter. That wasn't just a promotion. That was a shift in influence. It meant I'd be helping shape not just projects, but company direction. Budget allocations. New initiatives. The hires we made. The tech we backed. I thought that was reserved for VPs and senior partners, I said cautiously. It usually is, he replied, but we're building something new. He handed me a folder, an internal restructuring roadmap. Take this home. Think about it. Say yes, and you'll help us build the future. Say no, and you'll still have my respect, but you'll miss your shot. I took it home. I read it cover to cover while my wife slept beside me. I thought about all the meetings I wasn't invited to, the projects I was cut out from, the moments where I'd been overlooked. And then I thought about that beach call. About the confidence in my wife's eyes when she said, "You've got this." About closing that deal with waves in the background and sweat dripping down my back. I said yes the next morning. The change wasn't overnight. It never is. But slowly, deliberately, my influence grew. People started asking for my opinion even when I wasn't in the room. My forecasts were taken seriously. My recommendations actually shifted strategy. And as my circle of responsibility widened, something else happened. Warren got transferred. It wasn't a demotion, not officially. But it was a soft landing. A special advisory role on a satellite project overseas. A title without weight. He never directly reported to me, but when I saw the new org chart, it was clear he was out of the picture. And I didn't gloat. I didn't post anything online. I didn't brag in meetings or drop snide comments. I just moved forward. With every quarterly milestone, our team hit numbers that surpassed projections. The client we landed from that beach call? They expanded their contract by 60%. New deals came in because of our agile response models, ones I'd helped design. And eventually, when the next board meeting came around, I wasn't just invited. I was asked to lead the product innovation segment. As I stood at the head of that long glass table, suits lining both sides, I started with a slide that said nothing more than, "Value isn't location dependent." Then I clicked to a still image of me, shirt wrinkled, hair windblown, headset in ear, on that beach, closing that deal. The room chuckled. And then they listened. I walked them through how trust, not control, drives productivity. How the best ideas often come from people who've been overlooked because they didn't shout the loudest. How we needed to evolve, not just in tech, but in culture. They nodded. When I ended with our projections, backed by data, not buzzwords, someone at the far end whispered to the CFO, "This guy should be running ops." I heard it. I didn't respond. But I felt it settle in my bones like truth. Afterward, in the hallway, the CEO caught up to me. "You've earned more than a seat, you know," he said. "You've earned trust." That night, I walked home instead of taking a cab. The city lights shimmered, the streets buzzing. I passed people rushing to late dinners, office workers venting into their phones, street musicians pouring heart into saxophones. And I smiled. Because I had found my voice, not by raising it, but by proving it mattered. And I had done it without canceling my honeymoon, without giving up my life for a title, without becoming someone I didn't recognize. I thought back to that first message from Warren, the one that started this whole journey. "We need you on this call. No one else can handle it." He was right. No one else could. And now, everyone finally knew it. Looking back, it's almost surreal how one decision, choosing to take that meeting from the beach, completely changed the trajectory of my career. It wasn't just about closing the deal. It was about proving something deeper, that trust, ownership, and belief in your own value can move mountains, even from miles away. At first, I felt like I had to choose between my personal life and my professional obligations. But in the end, I realized I didn't have to sacrifice one for the other. I could show up, for my wife and for my company, on my own terms. And that made all the difference. That meeting wasn't just a win for the company, it was a turning point in how leadership viewed me. Before, I was just a name on an org chart. After that, I became someone they couldn't afford to ignore. And not because I shouted louder, played dirtier, or made a scene, but because I delivered, consistently, even when the circumstances weren't perfect. Now, my voice holds weight in rooms I used to dream of entering. My decisions shape products, partnerships, and strategies. And most importantly, I didn't have to become someone else to earn it. I stayed true to who I was, a builder, a strategist, and someone who doesn't crumble under pressure. So if you're ever stuck between choosing what matters to you and what matters to them, remember this: sometimes the best way to win isn't to play their game, it's to change the rules entirely. All it takes is one bold move. Even if that move starts with a laptop, a weak Wi-Fi signal, and the ocean crashing behind you.